Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll explain you on how to access your application outside your Kubernetes cluster. So let's assume that I have like three applications, application 1, application 2 and application 3. I'm going to access these three applications using your browser. Okay, so for example, when you hit your URL im7ins.com/API, basically you are going to call this application. So I'm going to divide this entire URL into two sections, 1 and 2. So 1 is nothing but your domain. Let me write it down. Domain, and this is path. So basically, as soon as you hit your URL, the domain im7ins.com will go and come to your DNS, which is a public DNS in this example, where you will be having a record called a name. This a name will be having some IP address. Okay, this IP address I create using Azure public IP. When I create this one, it generates the public IP. That public IP is what I'll be providing here in the private DNS zone. So our public DNS zone. It can be GoDaddy or it can be IONOS. In my example, I'm using IONOS. Okay. So this public IP will be attached as the front end. It will be attached as the front end. So what basically we are doing, we are trying to access the app gateway. If you see closely, we are doing all these two steps just to access your app gateway, which is your front end. Okay, in my previous video, I have explained that your app gateway is also a traffic manager, and also it has some rules, right? So basically here you define how to get into your Kubernetes cluster. So there is something called backend pool. So this backend pool is nothing but your external IP. When you create your Azure load balancer, it generates that IP. That IP is what you will be giving as your backend pool. That's why I mentioned this is backend. Entire Kubernetes section is backend. Anything in the front, like public IP, is all called front end. Okay, so that is how your app gateway will communicate your Kubernetes cluster using your external IP. Okay, we are still not there to reach your pod. Okay, this particular section, right, is called Nginx Ingress controller. This is basically a YAML file, which when you run, it's install your Nginx Ingress controller, and that will act as a load balancer. Basically, this is what responsible for load balancer. So you tie your external IP with this one, and okay, just understand this is like a YAML file which you will be download from the internet, and when you execute, this will create this is going to be responsible for doing the load balancer. Okay, this is very important. Okay, so if you look at here the second part, the path, right, path app underscore B and app underscore C, all these three information will be stored in the routing rules. Okay, so based on the path-based routing. This path-based routing is what used in this rule to say that whenever I have something called app underscore A, please redirect to this service. Okay, if you know the service concept, service is the one which will communicate to your pod through selector. There is a term called selector in your YAML file. That selector will match with the label in the pod section. That is how your service talks to your pod. So the same thing, if you have like thousands of application running in your Kubernetes cluster, you'll be having a defined routing rule. In the routing rule, you define which services has to call what. Okay, I hope you understand the concept of using your Nginx Ingress controller to route your traffic from your browser to reach your Kubernetes pod. Okay, let me get into your demo section now. Okay, we are going to follow this 5 simple steps. Please focus on, because there are a lot of configuration has to be very mindful while doing this activity. The step 1 I already completed, but I'll show you the configuration, and I'll be creating a resource group with this name, and I'll create the cluster name with this name. Okay, so yeah, see my previous video, how to install Kubernetes and how to configure, given in my earlier video. Let's go back to the demo. Okay, I'm going to create the same resource group, what I mentioned here. So, and I will also share the same step in the description. Okay, AKS demo is a subscription name, which I'm going to use for this one. Next, review, create. Okay, so while this is getting created, I'll show you the VNET, which I was talking about earlier. If you go to your VNET, this is a VNet. So reason why I have all my subnet in the same VNet, just to avoid the VNet peering. If you have a VNet subnet VNet in AKS and another VNet in app gateway, then you need to do a VNet peering. So just to avoid that, I created 2 subnet under the same VNet, one for AKS and another one for the app gateway. Okay, it's very simple. You can just follow along, like choosing the VNet, next, and you can create 2 subnet, one for AKS, one another for app gateway. Okay, now I'm going to install the Kubernetes cluster. Going back to the resource group what I've created, refresh here. So AKS Nginx demo. Click create. Type for AKS. Click Kubernetes. Create. Let me keep the same name what I have here. Yeah, basically it can be any name. Just for the video purpose, I keep things ready. And here you can leave it like that. I'm not going to patch it. I'm going to delete it as soon as the demo is complete. No dimension none. So yeah, it can be anything, not a problem. Click next. The node pull. I already know what is the lowest, the cheapest of all is what I'm going to select here. Choose size. If you already know how to install Kubernetes, then you can skip for a few minutes. I'm not going to do anything. Keep it 1. Date. Okay, next. Here I'm going to bring your VNet. Okay, so I'm going to choose VNet all. In that I'm going to use the subnet which I already mentioned for AKS. So here if you have to give a unique one, since I already use some of this range, otherwise it's going to complain. I'm going to keep some random number, 5, or it can be any number. Okay, so go back and just checking everything's good. Okay, next. Next. Yeah, just keeping it minimal. Next. So leaving the name as is. Next. Next. Okay, great. Okay, while this is getting created, I will try to explain the details of this one. Okay, going back here. So, okay, going back to the documentation. So while this will take like couple of minutes, while that is happening, I'm going to show the code, right? So one is the application. Remember I told in the earlier theoretical section where your pod will be pod and services have something called selector and the match label. So whatever you have here, this should match in the match label. That is how your services know which pod to call. And similarly, I told that the services references will be given. You go back to my presentation. From your routing rule, you are going to have this API reference in the services. So going back to the rule, if you look at the rule, I'm having something the service section for the first underscore app. I need to go to my first app underscore service. If you look at my first app underscore service, here I have the service name. This service name will go to the pod. Okay, this is what I'm trying to explain here. You basically you are whatever that what you wanted to access, that path will be defined in your routing rule. The routing rule YAML, you'll be having a references of services. These services has the reference of the pod. Okay, so I'll pause a video. It takes a couple of minutes to install the AKS. Once that is done, I will come back. Okay, so yeah, installation is still going on. One more thing I just wanted to share. So this particular YAML file is what is there in the internet, which we need to download, and you can directly call. Since we are going to use an internal load balancer, so it won't work just like that. If you are going to use an internal load balancer, for that you need to tweak little bit. So in if you look at here, I just added these 2 lines annotation, and also I have added the type load balancer. I just gave my load balancer IP as 10.0.0.8. Okay, so just in case if any other new load balancer IP is modified, I'll be modifying this particular line. Okay, so when you download, I just put my code also in my GitHub. So the same code is also available. The one what you have from internet, this is the one I downloaded. I tweak it to make it to work for my internal load balancer, which I also uploaded in my repository in GitHub. I'll share this link in the video. Okay, going back to see if the installation is complete. Yes, installation is complete. Now if you go back to the resource group under AKS demo, now earlier you'll be like saw a couple of resource group, one for VNet, and you see there is one more got created. Okay, underneath you'll be having energy, like if you want to do enable any firewall or anything, which you may need to go here and do the firewall. For example, if you wanted to give access from a different port, from a different IP, all that stuff will be doing here. Since everything I'm going to do it in the same network. Otherwise, if you are doing in a corporate, and you'll be like accessing from your laptop, you need to connect, so your IP will be in a different range. All that information will be provided under the network security group, under the inbound and outbound security rules. But for this video, we'll not be doing anything as such. Okay, so now your AKS cluster is created. Going back to our document, the next step is like deploy apps and services. Let me go and do that. So basically, like I have the document and everything ready. I'm going to install the apps and services first. Going back to my PowerShell. Let me zoom it. Okay, let me go back to my command. Let me copy this. Get just verifying my installation. Okay, so now I'm going to do that. Okay, so kubectl apply -f first. So if you see here, when I install first app.yaml, creating a pod, deployment, and also the service. Similarly, I'm going to do for second and third. Okay, so kubectl get pods. Get service. Kubectl get ing. So okay, I'm just showing that we don't have any ingress. We are going to set up everything now. Okay, now we have completed the apps and services. Now I need to deploy the Nginx controller. So this is a YAML file which I downloaded. I tweak it and added few things to make sure that it is pointing to. If you don't do that, it will download your. It will create the new load balancer, which is going to be. This is a line which basically tells that you are going to create an internal load balancer. If you don't have this line, it will create the public IP load balancer. Okay, so it's very important. So that's what I did here. Going back here, I'm going to run that kubectl apply -f Just making sure it's the right file. Okay. I'll pause the video. It takes some time. Okay. So Nginx Ingress controller is completed. Let me show you kubectl get ing. Sorry, kubectl svc -a. So you basically will be having a load balancer. Load balancer IP will be created. So if you see here, the one what I hard coded is what is get created. You can see it's a name. There is a namespace is created like a Nginx controller. This is what we are basically this what I showed you, right? This is the external IP. If we go back to the presentation, this Azure load balancer creates the external IP. This external IP will be used as a backend pool in your app gateway. Okay, so let me. Okay, so now I need going back to the steps, right? In my step, I have completed the Nginx control. I'm going to create the ingress rule. This is actually the ingress type. Let me clear it. kubectl apply -f routing rule app. I'll pause the video. Okay, this is completed. kubectl get ing. Okay, we see here, my host is going to be this and the address is going to be this. Okay, so now we are pretty much completed on the Kubernetes cluster side. So now going back to the Azure portal to create the public IP. Okay, now going back to the notepad. So now we have like the going back to the step, everything is completed. Now we are creating the public IP. Go here and search for, I think you can create anywhere, but I'm just trying to keep it everything in one place. Create public IP. And select this. Okay, one more important thing, don't leave your Kubernetes cluster. If you're not using it, please delete it right away, because these are like little expensive. Even everything public IP is a cost associated. That's why I'm creating everything together. Let me keep it PIP app gateway Nginx Ingress. It can be any name basically. Next. Yeah, keep it zone redundant there, because if you don't use the right one, it will not sync up to the respective zone. Okay, because we never know which zone it will get created. So keep it like zone redundant and also keep it standard. I'll pause a video. I think it's already created. So if you go and click here, it has the public IP. This public IP is what going to be my DNS. In the DNS I told you, right? If you go back to my presentation, here I'm going to keep my im7hills.com. There will be a name. That name will be having the public IP. This public IP is what I will be updating in my one. Okay. Okay, if you go to your DNS, that will be a name. I need to go back here, copy this and update. So right now you can confirm that if you go to your let me use my PowerShell only. NS lookup www.im.com. It's having a different IP, right? So now I'm going to give the updated one. If you look at that, previous is 234. Right now it's a totally different IP, 52, 238. But once I give save, maybe within like couple of minutes, if you go and do the NS lookup, it will have the updated IP. Okay, maybe I will wait for a couple of more minutes. I'll pause this video because it will take some time. Okay, I'll wait. I waited for a minute. If you go and do NS lookup again, you see previously like 234, now updated. This is the new public IP which I have added in my public DNS zone. Going back to my presentation, for this im7news.com, the public IP what I've created, I've added the name record. I attached that IP to here. Even in my presentation, I mentioned that this public IP should be used as a front end for my browser to interact with my app gateway. Let me do that. And the same app gateway also has the backend pull with mapping to your external IP. Please be very focused. This is a very important concept, and very it's good to know as well. So going back to my browser. Okay, so now the public IP is created, and let me go back, going to my resource group. I'm going to create my, let me go to that document. So public IP is created. Now I'm going to create the app gateway. Step number 4. Create. App gateway generally takes like 5 to 10 minutes. I'll pause the video the time when I create that. Okay, so keep it like application gateway. Click this. Create. Keep it like gateway demo. It can be any name. Okay, I'm just going to keep it no auto scaling. Going to keep it 1, and here I'm going to use my VNET. What I have already. I'm going to use the app gateway. If you look at my document, there are 2 subnet. I'm going to use a subnet. What is for the app gateway? Even though I'm using different subnet, but it's all under the same VNet, just to avoid the VNet peering. Okay, now I think pretty much everything is good. Your next front end. So here, you remember I told you, right? I'm going to attach the public IP. If you look at here, this is the public IP. What I have added, what I added as a name here, that is what I am attaching here. That is how, if you going back to your presentation, your public IP is attached to your app gateway. So now your browser, when you hit the im7news.com, it will redirect your app gateway. But app gateway doesn't know how to connect your backend pool. So that is something which we are going to do it in a minute. Next, backend. We have to add backend pool. This is the place where you will be adding the Azure load balancer. AKS load balancer IP. which is nothing but 10.0.0.8. Add. And then next configuration, add routing rule. You can give anything, routing rule and priority, anything, and you can give any number from 1 to some number. There is a range here. You can give anything. Then least number as high priority. So listener name, keep it like listener, HTTP listener, and go to your backend. So if you whatever you already created, that will be populating your AKS load balancer IP. Here you need to click add new backend HTTP. Okay, then I think you can leave everything as it is. Override with new host name. Here you give yes and type www.im.com, and in the custom probe, so later on I will be creating a custom probe. For now, keep it no and do add. Okay, everything is done. Next tag. Great. I'll pause this video. It will take 6 minutes to create the application gateway. Okay, the app gateway installation is complete. Go to resource, and there is one more activity which is pending. You have to go to your probe. If you see right now it is not healthy. If you go back to the state, it's complaining. Basically, it's because of the health probe is not working. So go and add health probe. Go to your health probe and add, and simply type something health probe HTTP. Here give your www.im7else.com. So basically here you can give anything what you put in your routing rule. So generally here you can keep some lighter weight application, but here I'm going to give the same first app SVC. If you have any simple application about your organization or your company, you can put that. So here I'm going to keep either else, or you can even put anything like basically it has to match whatever you have here. It has to match with one of it. First app, second app, third app, or this one. So you can basically keep anything. I'm just going to keep whatever it is available, right? So just give and do a test. So when this is getting installation, I also capture some of the troubleshooting steps. I'll give that information in the description. Okay, so the status is working. Give add. So this will be very highly useful because this is like a kind of a complex. Sometimes you do not know where is the problem. I will show you some of the troubleshooting steps. Last couple of minutes, I will show you how you can validate whether it's working or not. Those things I will show you shortly. Okay, now this is complete. Now you have to access your application, right? So let me go www. This is a very simple application, no fancy stuff. It's the same container image. I'm using it everywhere. First app, second app, and third. And if you can type third, right, it's going to be the same. I'll pause this. There was a background noise, that's why I popped a pause. Okay, going back here. So now I said like we can do a testing when you do not have a browser like that. We have to do something like a curl command, http:// okay w. So exe. So you get the output. Sometimes if you don't get, if the public IP is not correct or something, we already got the public IP here. So let me use this one. So just to make sure, like at various level, you can do this curl.exe http. Okay, you see it's working. So as soon as the public IP is, if you don't have the Nginx or anything installed, you'll be getting a bad gateway. That means your public IP is trying to, if you get a 502 bad gateway, that means something, there is an issue between your Nginx service and your pod. Sometimes sometimes if there is a port mapping issue, for example, if you have something here port number 80, and if you have some different one inside your service, so your 80, you are used your 80, but your application is listening on some other port 90, then its application may not come up, right? So in such situation, you can run commands like this. I just put this in the chat. Basically, you can create another pod. Inside that pod, you can just test the connection, like curl command and duplicate command. These things is what you generally use in your day-to-day work. Just wanted to show that how you can do that when things did not go through fine. You're basically creating a dummy application, this part. Inside that part, you're trying to access the application, something like this. So where this is your load balancer IP, just to make sure that whether your application is running good internally in your computer, right? Inside your cluster. Basically, you're making sure your application is running good inside your cluster. Okay, it's good. That's all. If you like this video, please like it and subscribe it. Thank you.